What is at stake then for investors?
What investors are trying to do now is they're trying to price 50 shades of different market stress. There's a lot of possibilities, a lot of uncertainty, and none of the options, none of the scenarios are particularly good. So you get different types of investors, those who need to be invested in France. So these people are trying to cherry pick through their way through the dip, trying to find the safest possible stocks. Other international investors are just getting out of France, and it's a very, very difficult it's a very difficult moment for stock investors.
And you talk about how investors are adjusting to this new political uncertainty in France. Give us a little bit more detail. You have seen those outflows then in terms of international foreign investors in the French equity space. What else have you been seeing, Julien?
So basically, one clear trade is to cut French banks. So a lot of even French investors are cutting because you have a direct link with French sovereign debt. So that's an easy trade to do, basically, if you want to cut out risk. You've got highway operators. There's a risk of nationalization. The far right has also been talking about privatizing the French equivalent of the BBC. So that means that for French medias, they would have to compete on a smaller pool of revenues, of commercial revenues. There are a lot of different on utilities. There's been a lot of very distinct ways of cutting risk on France. There's also no one has been buying the dip. In the French stock market basically is broadly flat on the year when the DAX, for instance, is up 8%. And so then you have the option to cherry pick your way and find really stocks that are the most resilient. So what people are doing, for instance, is targeting French industrials that have a very large footprint outside of France, where French revenues is only 5 or 10%. Companies that are active in Asia, in the US, and different ways. So there are different ways of adjusting to the risk, but there's no really good outcome to be expected. When we will be on July 8th on the Monday following the elections, there's not a great scenario out there.
Yeah. Julien, then, in terms of, so we have the first round. It's 2 rounds. We have the first round this weekend, then the final on July the 7th. Talk to us about what is expected then between now and that second round of voting in France.
There was a note by strategists at Odo that I found real good. Basically, they were saying, get out, stay out, don't get in. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. Between now and the end, there's a lot of volatility expected, and again, there's no really positive scenario, whereby you would invest on the French stock market really. So I think there's going to be a lot of stress, a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty. I think it's a market that's really complicated. Some people who need to be invested in French equities, for instance, fund managers who have funds exposed to France specifically, they need to find their way. But if you don't need to be in this market, a lot of strategists or brokers are saying you don't want to be in this market for the next 2 weeks.